We've got some
Hey, I'm Luis.
And
I'm Luis. And you're listening to the Content is Profit podcast.
We spent the last 4 years learning the strategies and techniques from some of the top marketers in the world on how to create content that turns into profit. And today, we're bringing them to you so you can take action immediately and start creating real content momentum.
If you'd like to learn more about how to turn your content into profit, go to contentisprofit.com. Oh, yeah.
Today, we have an amazing guest. He's going to show us, well, we are going to talk about how our guest left his corporate job to find the true meaning of love and how content plays a part in all that.
Oh, man, I can't wait to dig in this guy's mind. It's so exciting. But before we get started, guys, please don't forget to smash that subscribe button on the Content is Profit podcast. We would love for you to stay in touch with us and catch up on all the episodes. Remember to follow us on social media at BIZBROS. And if you want to catch the live show, you can tune in Monday, Wednesday, Fridays on Facebook.
That's right.
All right.
I think without further ado, it's about time to introduce our guest, right?
So when we first met today's guest, we honestly had no idea what he did. As soon as we heard him speak, we knew he had some experience in the game.
Yeah, he has great copy. He's clever. He is funny. But most importantly, he helps people create ridiculously awesome marriages. He is on a mission to get rid of mediocre love.
Love it. He has achieved some awesome milestones like publishing continuously for 7 years. He has more than 1 million downloads of his shows. He has his own TEDx talk, which we'll talk about, launching his later venture called Epic Wives Experiment, and above all, having a ridiculously awesome marriage.
Introducing the gift master, the soon-to-be dad, Mr. Nate Bagley!
Woo! Yeah, Nate, my man, welcome to the show!
You guys with me everywhere. You're like the ultimate hype beast. I love it.
Let's go.
I mean, that's part of the fun, right?
Oh, yeah. Man. Dude, it's amazing having you here. We are super excited, Nate. Honestly, since we met you in one of Steve's event, I've been like, this guy knows so much. Like, I'm telling you, it's like, oh, this guy, he's pretty good. So we need to dig in and, get all the goodies.
Yeah, I want to.
The go ahead. When I met you guys, I was like, these are my brothers from another mother. So
let's go.
The connection is real, guys.
Yeah, I mean, we know you have the dance moves. We come from South America, which dancing is like you're born dancing. You're a baby and you go out and do that. So we're gonna talk about that on how people are using creative ways of content to go about their days. But before that, I want to know, why don't you share a little bit of your story? We know that you're an amazing content creator. You have an amazing program that you're helping so many people, adding so much value, getting results, and literally changing their lives. So how did this start?
Yeah, man, it's kind of a weird story. So I just knew from a very young age that I wanted to one day get married. I wanted to have a family, wanted to have that life. And it was very obvious to me, and you guys can probably relate to this. It was very obvious to me that some people had amazing marriages and some people did not. I remember going to my friends' houses, and there were some friends where I went to their house and it was fun, and their parents got along, and there was no tension, and it was everybody just enjoyed being together in the same room. And then there were other houses that I would go to, and I feel like we had to hide from parents, and mom and dad did not get along, and we could hear them arguing. Yeah. And there was this tension, and it was just very clear for me from a very young age that there's a spectrum in quality of relationships. So when I got into my 20s, I was like, all right, time to get busy. I want to date, I want to fall in love, and I want to marry the girl of my dreams. And I got stuck in a really nasty pattern of breakup after breakup after breakup after breakup. And eventually I realized that all my relationships had two things in common. One is that I was a part of the relationship, and the other is it was failing.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I've seen all these TED Talks and all this research and reading these books saying that like the most important thing to your overall quality of life is the quality of your relationships.
Yeah.
And my relationships all sucked. So I was like, I got to figure this out, or I'm going to be doomed to be one of those couples that's just miserable their whole lives. Yeah. So I ended up quitting my job at like, I was 26 or 27. And I went on this crazy cross-country road trip and interviewed hundreds of couples who were madly in love with each other to see if I could figure out what they did differently than everybody else that made their relationship so extraordinary.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, that sounds like
So here's my question, right? Because obviously the show is called Content is Profit, right? And profit means so many things to other people. Like for us, it means like, you know, freedom, time, right? Because if we're making profit, we're able to afford those experiences that is gonna take our life to the next like level, right? So you decide to take on like this trip of like interviews and getting to know all these people, these couples, right? Do you start publishing right away, or is this something that you do for you, just for you?
Well, I did it for me, but I knew that there were other people who had the same questions I did. So I was smart enough to record all of those interviews and ended up publishing them on a weekly basis afterwards. And that's kind of how I got in this game, is I realized I'm not the only one who has these questions about how to have a great relationship. Like there are a lot of people out there who are struggling and they don't know where to get the answers. And a lot of the answers that exist are hidden in like research studies or in really boring books. And I found that I had an ability to go capture these stories and capture these principles and come and relate them to people in a lot more of an approachable way. And I hope that my passion for this topic is really contagious and gets other people excited about it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I got started. Is I started hearing these stories, sharing them. Other people were like, oh my gosh, I want to learn more about how other people are doing this well. And then it just kind of cascaded from there.
That's amazing.
Yeah, no, that sounds amazing. I have a quick question for you regarding recording them and then putting them out there. Like, did it ever go through your mind, you know, thinking like, well, do I really want to put all this work out there? What is other people going to think? You know, did that go through your mind?
Yeah. Every time you hit the publish button, there's that fear.
and what do you do? You know, what goes through your mind to overcome that fear, right? And especially at that moment, people that might be starting to publish.
Yeah, part of it is in listening to the interviews and doing the interviews, I learned stuff. And I have to remind myself, okay, if I got something out of this, there's somebody out there who will get something out of this. And maybe not everybody will, but if I hold out and I don't publish, that means that one person who might have paid attention and heard this is going to miss out on the benefit or the blessing in their life, the positive contribution that it could make. And I have a hard time living with myself knowing that I could have taken away somebody's unnecessary pain, and instead I let them suffer. So I kind of guilted myself into publishing.
That's such an amazing like nugget right there, because you know we found, especially also us, I mean we recorded like our first 5 episodes of the show and just stay there collecting dust, the equipment collecting dust for like a full year. And I think it was like on a similar situation where we saw like, okay, if our message, like if only one person like pays attention to this and we're able to help them to go to the next step, wow, that's such a big reward already. So that's awesome that, you know, you started that way too.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, no,
that's
best
fantastic. Entrepreneurs are servants.
Yeah, that's true. The power of giving, that is 100% true.
So kind of picking off of that, right? Like we are servants, right? You started this whole journey not just with publishing but researching about this thing that was very dear to you. And first off, thank you for sharing that story, because not a lot of people are able to do that, right? Like, and kind of recognize it. So the question is, were you super open about this, like from the very beginning, or was there like a process to get to this point where you share story, like this your story, you own it big time to the point to being on stage like Tex, right? And your show, you know, on a weekly basis.
Yeah, it's definitely a process. Like the first, if you go, I hope nobody goes back and listens to my first like 10 episodes, but I mean, there's a lot of anxiety that comes around, that revolves around publishing and speaking and telling your story. I've told my story a lot of different ways, and there's a lot of ways that I've told it that don't resonate with people. Yeah. There's a lot of interviews that I've conducted that I wasn't very proud of. There's a lot of content that I've written and videos that I've streamed live that like if I were to go back and watch them or listen to them, they're kind of cringy. And at the end of the day, like, yeah, man, you can either not publish. You can either publish and continue to move forward and learn from your mistakes and get better. Like, have you ever? I'm a little scatterbrained right now, but have you seen the video or the audio from Ira Glass where he talks about taste?
I have.
It's amazing. He says, like, you get in the game of whether it's podcasting or YouTubing or writing a book or like being a blogger, you get in that game because you have a specific taste. You know what you like. You know what resonates with you. You know what's really good. And then you go try and create something that reaches your level of taste and you can't do it. And it's really frustrating. And a lot of people give up. But the people who are really successful in this game are the people who continue to publish and publish and publish and publish. And each time they publish, they learn something better about how to get what they're able to create to match what their taste is, like what their level of expectation is. And I've seen myself grow as a publisher over the last couple of years, whether it's as a writer or as a speaker or a storyteller, or whether I'm creating videos or a podcast. It doesn't matter. Like the only way that you can create something to the caliber that you hope to create is to create 1,000 things that suck first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I have to remind myself that constantly.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's funny because I was watching one of your videos and I mean, you related this obviously to couples, but you said extraordinary couples are action takers. And ordinary couples are insight chasers. I think that's how you said it. Yeah, and I think this applies 100% too with publishing, right? Like you're talking about getting better progressively, but the only way to do it is by taking action, right? Like
there's always a million excuses. Like, oh, I got to watch another tutorial video on YouTube, or I got to get a better microphone, or I need to buy a better camera first, or like I need to finish this course. And it's like, no, man, just publish.
Hey, that was me, man.
Hit the go live button on your Facebook feed, on your phone, and just start going, telling your story, and eventually like you'll find your voice. And it doesn't matter the platform, the tools, doesn't matter how well it's edited. It just matters that it's a compelling story and that you have practice telling it.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree. And sorry, this is gonna be, I'm gonna throw another compliment at you, man. Something that I really like about you is that you obviously have a passion for what you do and what you teach, but as well, you are very passionate about being a great marketer, because you know that if you are a great marketer, you can reach all these people that you ultimately want to help. So again, just take it.
Thanks, man.
Catch it right there.
So like going off of that comment, right? Like where do you see that connection between, I'm starting to create these interviews, I'm publishing them out there and getting my voice out and starting that process of finding your voice with being a marketer, and then attaching maybe like a product or whatever you were selling right at the beginning. How was that process like? Because we talk with a lot of content creators, right? And we recently went to a conference called Podfest, which was amazing, but it opened our eyes to that a lot of people that are currently publishing, when it comes to monetizing either that business or that show, they're very lost, right? And that's a whole different set of skills that you need to do. So how was that connection for you, and when did you do it?
Yeah. So I was I'll use air quotes here. I was a marketer first, and then I was a relationship nerd. So in college, I was a communications major. Okay. I wrote for the newspaper. I took a bunch of marketing classes. And then my first job out of college, I worked at a marketing agency, and then I worked on a marketing team at a software company. Cool. And so I had a passion for marketing long before I had a passion for relationships. And then I set down this road of relationships, and I mean, I use marketing in air quotes because the type of marketing I was doing is not the same as the type of marketing that I'm doing now. And so I understood the concepts of like, getting people's attention and getting them to take action and things like that. But then I went out on this journey and did all these interviews. And you're right, I started to get eyeballs, and I'm like, I want to do this for a living. How do I do this? And it was a wrestle. Like I went through a lot of iterations, and I'm still going through iterations to try and figure out exactly how to deliver to the people that listen to me in such a way that provides enough value that they're willing to throw money at me. Yeah. I think one of the first things I did was my friend and I started a subscription box company called Unbox Love. And we decided
name.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. We decided we would curate a date in a box and send it to couples once a month, so they didn't have an excuse not to go on a date night. And it was a lot of fun, like conceptually a lot of fun, but logistically a nightmare. Because like every month we'd have to plan a new box, we'd have to source all the materials, we'd have to get them all packed up, we'd have to get them all shipped out, and then by the time we got them shipped out, we were already behind planning the next month's box, and it was absolute madness. And although I liked the vision of the business, and I was like, I can leverage my platform to like sell people into this product, and it's going to be really cool, and it's recurring revenue. Like the margins weren't there. I didn't understand numbers. I didn't have enough time to focus on marketing, and I thought people would just like throw their money at me because it was a good idea. And then later I went on and I did like coaching programs and one-on-one coaching, and realized that I did not love trading my time for money. And so I went through all these like different iterations of trying to serve people in a way that brought me joy and also fulfilled on their needs. And, you know, I closed the subscription box business. I don't do one-on-one coaching anymore. I don't really do group coaching in the way that a lot of people do group coaching. And now I just like, now I do something completely different, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, it's like, finding the connection between publishing and building an audience and selling to that audience was not easy. And it's still something that I'm working on and learning, but understanding the true principles of marketing and creating a sales message and a hook story and an offer that people buy into, and like teaching people to pay to get value, like that's becoming something that I'm really enjoying doing.
Yeah, that's awesome that you're enjoying that process. You know, earlier we were on the show, and one of the lessons that we've learned with our business, we used to have a t-shirt company. You know, the t-shirt that FONZI is wearing right now, we made it right with our own hands, and that was so awesome. But at the same time, the process was very, very painful, and we're like, we're never ever gonna do this again because we're not enjoying the process. So, you know, we're now in a position where, you know, we drink our own Kool-Aid and we're really enjoying the process. So I feel like you enjoy your process so much that, you know, you continue to publish, to reach out to like these experts, to reach out to your audience, right? And at the same time, you're making that connection. It's like, okay, what do they need? How can I help them? That, you know, at the same time, I can build a business around, and I think that's wonderful. So tell us a little bit about, was there like I mean, along all these 7 years that you've been publishing or building different businesses and different ideas, was there like a moment in there that you thought, hey, I'm done with this? Like,
yeah, I quit. I did quit.
You did quit. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah. After I sold Unboxed Love, I cashed in my chips. Like people are like, oh, you sold a company? That's so cool. You guys, when I sold my company, I made enough money to literally break even and pay off the credit card debt that I've been carrying to try and keep the company alive.
Yeah.
Wow. It's not glamorous. I'd call it a single. Like I hit a single. I didn't hit a home run. I got on base, and I was so exhausted after that. I sold that company and then got married to my wife. And I told my wife, honey, I'm taking some time off from the entrepreneur thing. I just want to get a 9-to-5 where I have security, where I have benefits, and where I can just be a good provider, where I can come home at 5:30 every night and just be with you without being distracted about like what's going on in my business and how's my customer support doing and like all these other things, you know? Yeah. And so I did that. I went back to the 9-to-5 grind for like a year and a half and just walked away from all this relationship stuff. And what ended up happening is about 18 months into our marriage, my wife and I went for a walk, and halfway through the walk, she stopped and she just like looked at me and goes, honey, I need you to do something for me. And I was like, well, okay. And she's like, I need you to quit your job. And I was like, what? And she's like, the light is gone out of your eyes. Like when I married you in large part because you had this passion. Yeah. And I know you still have that passion for helping people have awesome marriages. And I can't stand to see you just like going to work every day. It's like sucking your soul dry. I want you to quit your job. We'll figure out how to make it work. I need you to do it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I like burst into tears, gave her a big hug and a kiss. And I was like, okay, this is terrifying, but we're going to figure out how to do it. So the reason I came back is because my wife advocated for me, not because I chose to come back.
That's awesome. And talk about finding that one person that is going to support you no matter what. And not only that, but like push you. Could like, I can tell definitely she knew what you're capable of, right? And she's just encouraging you to do more what you're here for. So that's That's an amazing
That's
story.
amazing. I mean, you know, even let's say there's people that are publishing right now, even with their audience, you know, there's sometimes so much hate, especially like if you play on the polarizing side, right? You have your own message and you truly believe what you're saying, but there's always going to be people that might not agree with you. And the fact that you found so much support, you know, with your wife to the point that she's like, hey, I need you to continue on this journey. Like, I'm going to support you 100%. I think I see a connection that with your audience too, right? Like, because I mean, what was your audience like feeling at that point? And when you came back, and like, was that like, were they waiting for you, or like did you have to like rebuild the whole thing?
Yeah, there were some people who were, there's a big, I mean, I cleaned out a big chunk of my list when I came back, but the people who stayed on were like, hey, we've missed you. Where have you been? Like, is everything okay?
Yeah.
So it was, I think they were excited to have me back. And it's been fun to see people who are like, yo, I've been with you since the very beginning. Like, since when you did raise money for your Kickstarter, and I watched you do the trip. And like, it's been, you know, 7 or 8 years. I've watched you go through all these iterations, and it's cool to see it. So yeah, like, it's amazing how many people feel connected to you when you publish that you don't even realize it. Yeah, that's a spooky thing.
Yeah, no, we actually have a term for that. We call it the silent watchers.
The silent watchers.
Yeah, we actually had a 45 live challenge, which is you go live on Facebook for 45 days straight, and we actually got business out of a silent watcher. Like, one day he just texted my brother like, "Hey man, I've been watching your videos. Like, do you guys want to have a content dinner? We're gonna sit down and talk about content and stuff." And it turned out into an awesome deal, right?
Massive opportunity. Yeah.
So
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's, and that's the thing that a lot of people, I think, they're driven by, I mean, metrics, right? Like, oh, how many viewers do I have? How many people are watching live? And of course, we are like day in and day out, we are bombarded with people that have content with thousands of viewers, right? So if we get 2 viewers in our live stream, people are going to be like, oh, I'm a failure. It's like, no, like, imagine you have those 2 people in front of you. I bet you're going to get sweaty armpits. You're going to be super nervous, right? And like it's crazy. Like, even if it's 2 people in front of you, 5 people, whatever. Now imagine as soon as you start growing, right? So it's a crazy thought that you can help people through a camera. Like, you cannot even see them, but you're helping them.
It's nuts, man.
Going off of that, do numbers, like when you say, dude, like 1 million downloads, that's so people, so much, like, wow, like, message has reached out to so many households, and you've been able to help with your message and with the experts that you bring. What does that make you feel? Does that mean something to you?
No. I mean, not like, it's a cool number. Yeah. For sure. But I've never been a numbers person. I've always been an impact person. And the 1 million downloads doesn't mean nearly as much as the email that I get from one person who goes, I really needed to hear that today. That's or I watched this old video, or I participated in your course and everything changed. Like, we've done 2 iterations of the Epic Wives experiment. And every time we do it, I hear these transformational stories. One of my favorites is this woman who we're teaching about gratitude and appreciation, and how to give that in a very specific way to your partner, so that it makes them want to give you more of the thing that you like. And this woman was like really stressed out, and she called home one night, and she's like, honey, I'm not going to be able to make it home in time to make dinner. Can you please take care of it for us? And he's like, yeah, no problem. So she comes home from work, dinner's ready, and she uses the gratitude formula, and she tells him, you know, how much she appreciates it and why she appreciates it. And he goes, honey, I had no idea that dinner was stressing you out so much lately. How would you like it if why don't I just take care of dinner from now on? Would that be cool with you? And she's like, really? He's like, yeah, if this is stressing you out, I'd be more than happy to cook dinner every night. Let's take it off your plate. You don't worry about dinner anymore. I got this. Wow. And like, I hear story after story after story of people who are like carrying around these burdens. And then, like, because they've discovered my content or taken a course, their life and their relationship has completely changed. They feel less stressed and more connected, less burdened, and like more at peace. And it's like, that to me is way more important than a bunch of downloads.
That's sorry for interrupting here. That's great. And I think there's a super valuable lesson here for everybody that is listening, that if you're focusing on the metrics rather than on the impact that you can have, take a look at yourself, because maybe you are not doing what you're really passionate about, you know? Like,
Yeah.
it's because I think it goes hand in hand. When your purpose and you're impact driven, the crowd is they're gonna, I mean, I'm not gonna say the cliche build it and they'll come, because again, you need to know how to market your stuff. But if you're impact driven and you know how to market your stuff, oh, you're gonna have results for sure, 100%. And honestly, Nate is the proof of that.
Yeah.
You can just hear right now 1 million downloads, and he's like, yeah, like I don't really care. What I care is the stories that people come to me with of their success, of how I've been able to, you know, influence a little bit of their lives to make it a little bit better. And that is amazing, you know? I think that's our goal with Content is Profit. Hopefully someone that is listening, they're like, you know what? I'm going to start publishing right now. I'm going to go crush it.
We've done it with a couple of people. It's been fun because like they, you know, they're like, oh guys, like I see you guys there. Like I see your faces on the feed or whatever. And like, what's the next step? And you know, just having those conversations, we call them content conversations, is such gratifying, because now we're able to create a positive impact, just like you are with your audience and with the Epic's Wife experiment. And one of the topics I really wanted to talk to you about is being vulnerable, because on that TED Talk, when I saw it at the end, you have a moment where, you know, you break out like in tears, like you're there crying in front of the stage, probably hundreds of people, millions online,
a lot of people,
lots of people. So, have you found a moment other than that one during your content, or that you are purposely vulnerable? Or if you're not, like, has it come out somehow, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I want to add to that question a little bit, you know, because I think a lot of people have that fear of being vulnerable too, right? So, you know, what are your thoughts around that fear, and how can you deal with that?
Yeah, the way you develop a relationship with let's talk about vulnerability before we dive into that. And this is a topic that really hits home for me, because I'm a relationships guy, and vulnerability is a really big part of relationships. And so the mental image that I get when we talk about being vulnerable is, if I was like a warrior, if I was like a soldier, if to become vulnerable, I have to take off my armor.
Yeah.
And that means that there's a possibility that I could get hurt. I'm exposed to the potential for being hurt or being taken advantage of. Now, if you are in a relationship with somebody and you try and hug them and they're in full body armor, it's really hard to connect. But when you hug somebody like your friend or your brother or your lover or whatever, and you're heart to heart and you can feel them close to you, man, that connection is real. Like, you can really, really feel that connection. And so to me, vulnerability is just taking off the armor and being real with people, like letting them see the real you, what's really going on in your life. I think it's Brene Brown who talks about the importance of sharing your scars and not your wounds. And so there's a little bit of a balance between sharing something that is fresh. Yeah. And that's kind of, sometimes it feels like you're oversharing and you're emotionally dumping on people. That's not vulnerability. Vulnerability is like sharing something in a way that helps them, helps you connect through the feelings of empathy, and helps them see themselves and their own experiences through your experience. And so for me, like, it's the hardest times. It's hardest for me to be vulnerable when it's just me in a room talking to a camera.
Yeah.
But when I'm having a real honest conversation, like right now, it's really easy for me to be vulnerable, because like, I like you guys and I care about you, and therefore I want to be close to you. I want to have a relationship with you. I want to have a relationship with your listeners. So I've learned that it's okay for me to take off the armor in the right setting. I'm not going to take off my armor if I'm going into battle, but in a situation like this, like, it's absolutely necessary. And if you're a content creator, if you are a marketer, you have to tell stories to connect with people. And the stories that connect the most are the stories that are true and honest and vulnerable. So I think it's especially in the relationship space, but in any business, I think the most vulnerable stories are the ones that connect the most with people, develop the most trust, develop the most connection. And then that's how you develop a following.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm actually relating a little bit to that. I started reading a book called Anti-Fragile, and the subtitle is Things That Gain from Disorder, right? And I think being vulnerable is is in part that, right? Like there's some disorder in your life, something that happened in your life that made you grow, and it turned into a scar, like you said, and now you're willing to share that. And somebody else that might be going through that same path, like you said, right? Create that feeling of empathy. They're gonna be like, wow, like he just put into words what I'm feeling right now. But not only that, like maybe they have been afraid of sharing that, or maybe they have been afraid to try to overcome that. And I think just connecting to that level helps people see like, okay, like if they have done it, I can do it as well, right? Like it's inspiring ultimately. So, yeah.
100%.
I love it. So transitioning a little bit to the topic, right, that you deal with, right? You talk with relationships is it's something, it's not tangible, maybe, like it's not a material thing, right? But it is there, and I can see this topic being very polarizing at some point. So what is like your take on, what's your position as a content creator? You bring a lot of experts. I think your last season, you're being you on your own a lot more. But why do you start bringing different people into your network? And, it started with you wanting to know more, but why do you continue over 100 or plus episodes doing that? And what's the direction that you're going to take going in the future?
Yeah, whether it's just me or whether I'm bringing on guests.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be the first to admit that I don't know everything. Like the world, my world, I'm anybody's world, but I'll just speak for myself. My world of relationships, like there's so much to talk about. There's so many things that people are struggling with and they're suffering with and they want solutions to, they want to know more about. And I can't be the expert on everything. I have a massive bookshelf full of relationship books. And even after reading all those, I still don't know everything. So I love bringing on people who know more than I do to speak to a specific topic, because I get to learn from it and my audience gets to learn from it. But I also, more so lately, here's one of the reasons I made a transition away from doing only interviews is because I realized that I was branding myself as more of an interviewer and a storyteller than I was as an expert. And I felt that after doing almost a decade of research and reading books and spending tens of thousands of dollars on workshops and therapy and being trained by some of the top marriage experts in the world, that I had something to share that was more than just being a proxy for my audience. So there came a point where I was like, I'm ready to be known as an expert and not just an interviewer, not just a curious soul. And so in doing my solo episodes and mixing it in with an interview every now and then, I get an opportunity to kind of stand on my own soapbox and teach from my own experience and position myself as a subject matter expert. And it's kind of helped to, I've noticed that people take me more seriously now because of that. So I think it's good to not be the only expert in the room. It's good to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, but it's also not good to only defer to other people and not establish your own voice.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I love where you're going with this because, us, like we struggle a lot with that, right? Like we worked on this content social media world for about 5 years now, and we've gotten results. How do you qualify yourself, right, as an expert maybe, or is it other people that actually call you an expert and then you take on all that and continue to go? And I think that's a thing that we're constantly like thinking about. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but at the beginning when we started publishing, we're like, wow, that was a big block for us. It's like, are we actually able to talk about this thing, right? So for you, what made you, like, what was that thing that you're like, okay, I feel like an expert, I am an expert, let's continue to go?
Yeah, that's a hard hump to get over. It was for me, at least. There's a lot of imposter syndrome that creeps in. And a lot of people, like I still get confronted with, well, did you go to grad school? Are you a therapist? I don't see any letters behind your name. Why should I trust you over a therapist? And like, I have lots of answers for that now, but in the moment, it's a scary feeling to have people like, why are you the expert? Why should I trust you over somebody else? And to me, the expert, I read who said this? I can't remember who said it, but somebody said the most important person in your life is probably going to be somebody who's just 2 or 3 steps ahead of you, that they can turn around and you the obstacles and how they overcame them that you're facing now.
That's amazing.
I think a lot of the times we look at people who are like a mile down the road and we think that they're going to be our mentors and the people who help us the most. But really, most of the time, it's people who are just a couple steps ahead of us who provide us the most help. And I found that when I started to realize that I may not know everything, but I know enough to help somebody get results, to help somebody overcome specific trials and struggles that they're experiencing, that I could consider myself an expert of that thing.
Amazing.
You know?
No,
and gradually my expertise grew.
Yeah. Sorry for interrupting.
To me, it's about helping people get results. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. And I think I've been personally feeling that shift a little bit. And I think it changed at first because we used to read and consume a lot of content and then share kind of like what we learned, right? And bring people and share their opinions and their expertise. But I think it wasn't until I started being more of, and not in a bad way, but like of a critic. So now instead of just reading a book and be like, oh, I learned this and share it, now I read something and I ask myself, do I agree with this? Yes, no, why? You know, what is my own opinion about this? Yeah. And, you know, and then that's what I go and share with other people. And I think, again, there's nothing new in the world. Like, if you think about something, probably somebody else thought about it way before you did, right? So at the end of the day, it's about, okay, how am I going to like put my thoughts together, my own opinions together, and how am I going to share about this topic with my audience? And like, I think that's what makes people an expert, right? Like, then getting that confidence to put your own opinion to it, obviously doing it with ethics, right? Yeah. Like on the moral base, I guess, that you know you're actually truly helping people. I think that's the difference, and that is a big hump, right? Like what you said, that imposter syndrome. Because as soon as you start doing that, you're like, oh no, what are the others gonna say? I'm not the expert, right? Like,
what if I get found out?
Yeah, exactly. Like I remember the very first time we went to sell or social media marketing agency services when we first started, that we went to a restaurant, and my biggest fear was him asking me, oh, what is your diploma in? Because I graduated as a sport management. That's my degree of sport management. I never used it. But I was like, what if he asked me? Oh, no, you know, like I even dressed up like a suit on, like a tie, everything.
We need to find a picture of that, man.
And I went there and I talked. And guess what? He never asked me, like, hey, did you graduate? What's your degree or anything? So, you have that confidence and whatnot. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, you know, that shift and how difficult it was. Because I think people need to hear that not everybody has it easy. Yeah,
I think what it boils down to is, if you don't ever want to be found out, don't claim to be an expert of something that you don't know a lot about.
Exactly.
Like in my space, there's a guy that I'm thinking of right now who is considered like the expert in a specific domain of relationships. Okay. And I went to one of his trainings, and he was like teaching. It was just a master, just like pouring out knowledge. And then he crept into a domain of sexuality and sex, which was not his forte. Like he hadn't done a lot of research around it. It's not something he'd spent a lot of time in. And he shared his opinion, and he carries a lot of authority in other aspects of this domain. But when he shared that opinion, I was like, I lost credibility for him. I was like, oh man, why is he talking about this? This isn't his domain, and he's wrong. Like I know he's wrong because I've studied all this stuff, and like I knew he was wrong. And so like if you don't ever want to be caught being uncredible or not having good credentials, just don't talk about stuff that you don't know anything about. Refer out to other people. Yeah. You know, there's actually people get more respect for you when you say, actually, I don't know the answer to that question, but I know somebody who does that can help you. Like maybe I'm not the best guy to help you develop an email campaign. I'm an expert in YouTube videos. I'm really good at helping you create dynamic YouTube videos that create engagement and stuff like that. If you want emails, I'm not your guy, but I know a guy who can really help you. Like you don't need to be the expert in all things content. Just be the expert in the thing that you're really passionate about, and be enough of an expert that you can pave the way for the people who are a few steps behind you.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. I think it's, and I think it's even more difficult to admit and tell the other person that you don't know about that, or that you're not the expert about that, and therefore they're gonna be like, okay, like respect, you know? So
Yeah.
that's an interesting lesson and
As a
another
client,
golden
I'd
nugget.
rather hear that up front than find out. Like, I'd rather hear from somebody that I hire that they don't have the answer, but they can find it, and have them be honest with me, than have them go, yeah, we can do that. And then a couple months go by and I paid them money and they're not getting me results. And I'm like, what is going on? And then find out later, like, oh, actually, they didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah, no,
That's way worse.
I can relate to that because, again, we were talking about this morning. We actually used to have a client that, I mean, she was amazing. We learned so much with her.
It's like that first client, right?
Yeah, that first client, right? That they tell you, hey, can you do this? And you're like, yes, of course I can do it. And then immediately you go to YouTube and like try to figure it out. And I mean, it was obviously a moment of our life where in part we were operating out of need, right? It's like, yes, we can still do it. We can do it. I'm putting challenges on us, but it led us to where we are right now. And it taught us the lesson, okay, we need to be the experts in one thing. We cannot be the masters of everything because like that doesn't really exist. So yeah, it's interesting because looking back at our story, I'm like, wow, we were there, right? Yeah. And it's fun to see how we overcome that.
Yeah, I think this relates to not just with like what you do, but with your message, right? Like it's like the message that you put out there, specifically knowing what's your dream audience, who's that dream client that you want to work with. Did you know right off the bat who that person was? No, obviously. Okay. No. And what was that process? How do you discover, or are you still discovering who that person is?
No, I'm pretty clear now. I mean, I started out as a storyteller, not as a marketer. Or, well, I mean, not as like an entrepreneur, I should say.
Okay.
So I told a lot of stories and built an audience, and then turned around and looked at my audience, and I'm like, oh, I guess that's who I'm serving. You know, I had a list of a couple thousand people, and I'd send out a survey and find out like, oh, it's 70% women, 30% men. Most of them are a little bit younger. Most of them are a big chunk of them are married and have like a couple of kids, and they're entering that phase of life where things are just really hectic, and they're starting to go, remember when we got married, how happy we were and how carefree we were and how connected we were, and now we're just worried about mortgage and finances and changing diapers and running kids to soccer practice, and we can barely even get on a date night. Man, life has changed. If we continue down this path, we're in trouble. You know, we're going to lose each other. And they come to me to reconnect. But I had to build an audience and talk to them and tell enough stories and engage with them and ask them enough questions to figure out who they were and what they were struggling with. So now, like the Epic Wives experiment is like kind of what my big core offers that I do right now. Yeah. And I know exactly who I'm targeting. Yeah. I am targeting the wife who is feeling stressed out, overwhelmed, burned out. Like the majority of the relationship, the quality of the relationship rests on her shoulders. Like if she didn't engage her husband and like poke him and prod him, he wouldn't really show up. And she's feeling a little resentful. And then I tell a story about transformation and how you can go to from that place to a place of connection and passion and playfulness and fun and peace in less than a month by doing a couple little experiments, and your husband doesn't even have to know. And yeah, you might think like, I shouldn't be doing more than I'm already doing, but I promise you, if you do this, you're going to walk away at the end of this challenge and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, my marriage is so much better.
Amazing.
And I've had 500 women read that story, hear that story and go, I'm going to give this a shot. You know, I give them a money back guarantee, and then they come and they try it out, and I get literally miracle after miracle. The last month I just remember sitting on my couch night after night just crying tears of joy, reading these women's testimonials coming back saying, I don't know how this is working, but my husband opened up to me and connected with me, or my husband started doing stuff on my honeydew list, or my husband bought me flowers. He hasn't done that in a decade. And they're like, what is happening? And I'm like, you guys, like, you're doing the work. That's what's happening.
Exactly.
Like, and anyway, so that's like, once you lock in on who your customer is and talk to them enough, you figure out what they struggle with, and you tell them the right story, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I want those results.
Amazing.
It's a cool experience.
I love how specific it is. And I think, you know, we struggle a lot with that when we started this whole content is profit side of things. Do you ever like fear that there was not enough people. Like if you go that detail, and by the way, if you're listening and you fit that profile, please go and check Nate, because we've seen those reviews and they're amazing. We actually have personal friends that are part of that program and they're loving it. So but yeah, so back to the question is like, do you ever feel like there was not enough? You're like, okay, I'm being so specific. Yeah. I'm not gonna have a market for this. I'm not gonna be able to keep my lights on.
Yeah, definitely. There's all these narratives that go through my head. It's like, one, there's not enough people. Two, if there are enough people, I don't know how to get in front of those people. How do I get in front of them and convince them? Three is, why would they follow me when they could follow somebody else? There's other people out there doing similar stuff that have way bigger following than I do. Why would anybody sign up for my thing when they could go do this thing with this other person? Or the credentials creep in, that imposter syndrome. Why would they listen to me over somebody who has way more experience, or who has proven different results? Like maybe they have 300 testimonials and I only have 50. Like why would they choose my program over theirs? And yeah, it's really easy to get caught in your head, man. Super easy.
So how do you do to not get caught in your head when all these stories kind of creep in and you're like, hey, I know I can deliver. Like, how do you do that?
That's a good question. It's something I struggle with. And I find that the times where I can break out of that are that, like, people can't think of two things at the same time. It's impossible. You can't think of two things at the same time. You can't focus on two things at the same time. You can alternate back and forth really quickly, but you can't just stay fixated on two things at once. It's impossible. And so when I start to fall down that I don't know, that well of darkness and shame and fear, I think that the thing that's most helpful is having people in my corner that I can talk to that will remind me like what I really need to be focusing on. I save every email. I have an email folder in my inbox called Goods. And every time somebody sends me a thank you note or a testimonial or something positive, I save it and I put it there. And in those moments where I'm feeling discouraged or like, nobody's going to listen to me, I go back and I go, oh yeah, here's a list of like 100 people who've listened to a podcast episode or taken a course or done a challenge, and they got real results. And like, that's why I'm doing this. And if I don't pull my head out of my butt and keep moving forward, then people who need this type of a result aren't going to get it. So
yeah,
I love
start working.
I love the feel good folder in the email. Yeah, I'm like, let's do that.
Yeah, we actually we were Funnel Hacking Live, right? And we heard Tony Robbins, and for me, like, it was very meaningful what he said about the positive stacking. That activity for me was so powerful, to the point that it's very similar to what you do with the feel goods, right? Like you're just stacking a ton of positives, so you identify that you feel down, you go back to that. And I think with most content creators, especially if they're starting up in their journey, they're gonna face so many things. They're gonna face growth, they're gonna face like feedback, they're gonna face haters, right? And I think something like that is very useful to have, where you can remember, okay, what are the positives? Who's the people I'm impacting? What have I done to help them out? And then go back and check those out. So that's amazing. I love it.
Yeah, I think naturally as humans, we try to stay in our comfort zone, right? So when we have to do something to move forward, immediately it's like doubt, those limiting self-beliefs that you have, and they're going to stop you right on your tracks. So yeah, I think it's a great tool to have something that reminds you, like, hey, this is what you're doing this for.
Yeah.
And not only that, like, you have done it, and look what people are saying about it, right? Like how you're helping them.
Yeah,
it's a great reminder.
Yeah. I literally right before this call did a Facebook Live, and the topic of the Facebook Live was that there's two types of anxiety. And like, your brain creates the feeling of anxiety to protect you from danger. Like, your brain's number one purpose is to keep you alive. That's like baseline goal number one, and everything else is built on top of that. And anxiety is an emotion that's there to keep you alive. But like, one type of anxiety is, oh, there's a tiger behind that tree. And the other type of anxiety is you're stepping outside your comfort zone. Yeah. And 99% of the time when we feel anxiety in life, or when we're feeling anxiety in our business, it's because we've reached a growth point. Yeah. Our comfort zone, we've like reached that edge of our comfort zone, and we're stepping out into it. And always two things always go together, and that's growth and anxiety. And you're going to feel discomfort. You're going to feel doubt. You're going to feel that imposter syndrome whenever you're in a position of growth. And you have two choices. You can either push through and you can do the work and you can chase your dreams and get success and see if you can get results, or you can give up. Yeah. And you win, and you cannot grow, you cannot become better, and then you'll never have the strength and the capacity to overcome those challenges again. So if you're in that mode right now, or if you're feeling that self-doubt, if you're feeling afraid, if you're feeling anxious, just know that's what everybody feels. It's natural and it's normal. And the goal here, if your life isn't in danger, is to push through that anxiety or become friends with it. Really understand, like, what are you trying to protect me from here? Yeah. Like, what most people feel anxiety and nerves around is like, somebody's going to judge me. Somebody's going to hate me. Somebody's going to criticize me. You know, somebody's going to take this and steal it. Somebody, like, there's all these reasons and excuses that you'll feel anxious about not publishing. But if you just publish, if you just produce, that anxiety starts to go away and you start to develop confidence. And it's the only way to develop confidence is to push through that anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I feel like we felt that growth on confidence by publishing. I think there's something about putting your thoughts into words that it just hits you. It feels like you're learning as you speak and you're growing as you're speaking as well. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but it's an amazing sensation.
Yeah. Well, Nate, we want to be super respectful of your time. This conversation has been amazing. I think we tell everybody we need like a round 2 at some point, because there's so much stuff that we can keep talking about. Like I love your entire journey.
Anytime, guys.
Thank you, man.
Anytime you want to chat, you let me know.
Appreciate it. Thanks. So Nate, tell us, how can our audience find you? How are you helping people right now? And what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, 2 great opportunities for you. One, if you just want to tune into the podcast, you can subscribe on iTunes. It's just the Growth Marriage Podcast, or you can subscribe on YouTube. I've been really focusing on YouTube lately and delivering videos, and I like connecting with people face to face. So that's a huge opportunity. And then if you are a wife and you're listening and you want to take your marriage to the next level, come join the Epic Wives Experiment. It's at epicwivesexperiment.com. And it starts in mid-May, like May 18th. So in just 2.5 weeks. And I guarantee you, I will knock your socks off. I guarantee you're going to walk away. If you show up and participate for 30 days, you'll walk away going I didn't know my marriage could be this good.
We have seen those reviews, and they're literally amazing. And we literally refer it to a really good friend of ours, and they're having amazing results. So go ahead, guys, check Nate out. Definitely check his content out. We are so freaking excited that you were able to do this with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I think that's it, guys. If you're listening, please do not forget to subscribe to Content is Profit podcast. Go check Nate's out at the Growth Marriage button. Smash it. That's right.
That's right. And in honor of Nate, if you get to see a video, or if you're watching it live, or you get to see a little clip of this podcast, please comment with a GIF.
Yes.
Yes.
With that, Nate, don't leave. We're going to chat with you for a couple more minutes. For everybody listening, thank you so much. And we'll see you live on Friday and on the next episode if you're listening to
Monday,
any platform. So thank you, guys. Have a good one. All right.
Woo!
All right. Well,
you guys are amazing.
Oh, man. Thank you.
Thank you, man. That was so awesome. Dude,
that was fun.
I've never seen somebody do this live like you guys are doing it, and I think it's amazing.
Really? Oh, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Such a big compliment. Yeah. So just so you know, we're still live on Facebook. So Facebook people, just say hi to Nate. And if you have any question, we'll stay here for 2 more minutes so you can answer that. Normally people are very shy, but that's okay. Silent watchers are there. So I'm sure they're going to creep on your profile and your stuff.
I just have a question for Nate. In honor of that TEDx talk, and for people here live on Facebook, have you fought naked? Huh?
Who hasn't?
Have you done it? I can say I have not done it, but I will definitely try my best to pick up a fight and just get naked.
Just pick up the fight again.
It's that the whole premise behind it is it's really hard to be angry at somebody that you love when they're naked.
Dude, literally when I saw the TEDx talk, I was imagining that with my girlfriend. I'm like, what if I would get naked as she's mad at me, or vice versa, right? I'm like,
yeah.
whoa, like I think I would be like laughing, like giggling, you know, like I cannot be mad anymore.
Yeah, it puts a lot of things into context.
Yeah.
And if you are still mad when you're naked, it makes making up after the argument a lot better.
Yeah, there you go. It's a win-win-win situation. It reminds me of something that our grandma told us at some point. It might be gross, but I don't care. She goes like, hey, if you picture your wife, the person that you love, you know, pooping, and they're still beautiful to you, you are in love.
You are in love.
So, advice from grandmas, you know, it is what it is.
From Hispanic
family,
grandmas.
it's you really love somebody when you fart in front of them and they don't run away.
Exactly.
That's right.
Well, guys, if you are on Facebook, thank you so much for watching. We did not talk about naked poops all the time. We did talk about content and how Nate has been building a wonderful audience and he's been helping thousands of people with his message. So go check the episode out. Content is profit, and go check out Nate as well. So with that, have a good one, guys, and thank you for tuning in on Facebook. Bye-bye.
Ciao, pescao.